All right, we're live.
All right, good evening, everyone. This is budget meeting one for Swatara Township proposed budgets for 2026. This budget workshop will include the fire service, the ambulance service, liquid fuels, debt services, and olds. I ask everyone in the room, as you speak up, because obviously we're just operating off the camera. We don't have the microphone hooked to the camera so the public can hear you. And Treasurer Yarzinski, if you'll take it away.
Okay, I'm just gonna start off because Zach has to go to the planning meeting with olds, although that was at the end of the PowerPoint. So I'm just gonna do the opening and then I'll skip to his and then go back to everything else. But these are the preliminary requests that the department has made for these departments, kind of like their wish list items that can be discussed about potentially going on the budget. As most of you know, the majority of the budget is fixed with wages and insurance and staff costs. So the only way to kind of make more room for that is to free up some fixed expenses and reduce some of the major expenses. We can also look for grant opportunities and other funding opportunities and picking and choosing which major projects we're going to complete and when. Obviously inflation plays a big factor from year to year when we come to budgeting, so that's why a lot of things are increased slightly. And obviously things like refunds, accidents, reimbursements, things like that we can't exactly plan for will and can throw off a lot of these budgets, specifically some of the fixed ones like ambulance, for example. And lastly, as of today, our health insurance provider hasn't been able to give us a full estimate, but they said up to a 20%, no more than that, but they're going to give us a more precise estimate closer till. And then in the meantime, I'll also get quotes from others, health insurance providers. Shannon's working on that. It is a little bit early for them to provide us quotes though. So for now, some of the health insurance looks at a big increase. The current tax assessment as of August 28th went down about $100,000. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go into the next year, because that will decrease the revenue obviously for all of these funds, except for liquid fuels and tonight's presentation.
So you just show that revenue loss, that it actually be across all funds, not just one specific fund?
Right, across fire, ambulance, general, and debt service. Yeah, I forgot in a second. Okay, so I'm gonna skip to the old slides now, which are at the end of the packet. So don't look at the screen if you don't wanna get dizzy. Oh, hold on. How do you get it
Wait
back?
for the current
Just
slide.
double click it.
Oh,
No, look up the computer, up the screen.
Up there.
up
Yeah,
at that
up
thing?
there, play from current slide.
It's not showing that on here. Okay, there, that's only one slide. For olds, there's only a couple slight changes. There's usually hardly any changes from year to year. The admin fees and the hauler registration fees, we have a better collection estimate that Zach calculated for us, which will be on the revenue side, and you'll see that when we go through that. But for expenses, we always estimate a little bit of an increase in the staff wage at 3%, even though the part-time staffer never works their full amount of hours anyway, so we never incur that much, but we do. You typically budget for about a 3% increase if the board decides to go with that. And then Olds is going to be paying their expense of municity as those costs are significantly increasing from year to year. But this is just a reserve fund for septic expenses the township may incur, and it's a not-for-profit fund, so we're not trying to make any like profit or any money off it. So it is just a fixed fund. And if you have any questions for Zach regarding olds before I go into the other funds.
Zach, I know you got rid of, I think you switched everything to Minicity now,
Correct.
and you got rid of Laserfish, so that would justify that somewhat of an increase that we see there in your data network.
Exactly.
And it's my understanding it's more of a robust program where you can enter your inspections on the code side as well.
Yep.
And then as far as the on-lot inspections, we did see a reduction, and I would take it that's due to when you look at it from the standpoint of what district you're inspecting, you might have less in that district for expenses versus next year they could increase because it could be a larger district that you're doing your inspections on.
Yeah, exactly. So this year was District 3, which is our largest district of
Okay.
400 some properties. This one has 231 properties, so
Okay.
with a 95% collection rate.
So you would agree, let's keep that rate basically at the same time, because we're gonna have that carryover, and we can increase expenses next year because we're in a different district come next year.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that's all I have. Any other board members have any questions?
I'm gonna have questions on some of the other highlights, obviously.
You have anything for Olds? Zach just has to go down, I think you came in a couple minutes, but Zach has to go downstairs, that's why we went to Olds first. Do you have anything for him?
Not at
Olds?
the moment.
Okay. You want some follow-ups, and
Sure.
we'll send some emails on some follow-ups if the commissioners have follow-ups.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you.
Point of interest, we have the 25 there to make the comparison?
Yeah, that's in the commissioner's packet. That's something that we'll deal with at a later time. Essentially, right now, it's just an overview for the committee chairs and the commissioners to be with the staff and go over their needs for 26 right now. That's it.
Like the wishes.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, I mean, it's in front of us. I'm gonna go down through it if it's okay, just to let it know. a couple of the- I mean, unless you wanna do it, with your own but.
You can go first.
So 2025 budget is 15,000. It looks like that's staying the same. Not sure what's changing here. Looks like
Not very
everything-
much.
Everything, the office expenses look to be 500 as opposed to the 8. Network expenses have gone down by 300, looks like. $35 for phone, is that correct? One lot, septic inspections, 3,000 was budgeted in 2025, it's 2,000 for 2026. And, the entire budget is $25,299 in 2025. $24,864 in 2026.
And the
And it's-
reason,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's good for you to fill in.
The reason that the one is in blue for the decrease is per Zach's recommendation. He thinks that there doesn't need to be that much allotted based on the history, so. Which was the most significant decrease.
See if that's the expense side.
Total was like a 1.7% reduction for that fund. Now we can go back to the beginning.
Okay, yeah, sorry, that's the dead last. I think that's. So now we're back after the tax assessment page, and it's for the fire services. There's about four segments of like wish list categories. So the first discussion items is obviously staff. There's, we have the fire incentive program, the part-time firefighters, and we approved the coordinator position this year. There's a graph that shows the predictions of more coverage through the years, which will implement career firefighting and strengthen the coverage numbers. Mike will go into all the fire slides in a deeper presentation after I'm just presenting the wish list and discussion items. So he will be able to answer your questions. But the capital items include rope gear, rescue tools, and water rescue tools. I think we discussed the battery powered rescue tools last year, and this year, he plans to obtain a grant that will cover the majority of the cost. And most of these are to reach, compliance standards. 2 vehicles are requested for fire, police, and OIC. And lastly, there's a schedule for apparatus replacement, since they're taking on average about 4 to 5 years from the order date to when he would actually get the piece of equipment. So we're going to have to plan ahead on scheduling. But these are all just discussion items, and again, Mike will go into it all in his presentation. My presentation just encompasses all of the requests. So, did you want to do yours now, or should I go on the rest? I guess I should have finished it, right? Yeah. So then, the next fund is the ambulance fund. Like the old fund, it's a fixed fund. The only expense the ambulance fund incurs is the monthly contracted amount, unless we have to do a tax refund, which we do not budget for, hopefully because we never have to do it. But we usually do end up having to do it. It's just how the fund works. But we just budget for the amount of the contract for 12 months, which is $99,000 even. For the liquid fuels fund, we're getting the municipal payments a little later and later each year. We always used to get it around March, April, May. This year we got it in June, so I'm guessing probably around April and May next year if I had to guess. Every time I hear from PennDOT speaking at my GFOA conference, they are very adamant about how they are predicting that it's going to go down about 5% each year. That hasn't exactly happened yet, but that's just what they always want us to share with our municipalities, so I'm going to share it even though it's not what our pattern actually shows. The expenses are the same, but the costs are going up for some of the expenses, so that's where you'll see on the comparison sheet, but it's anti-skid, traffic signal maintenance. Actually, they'll cover $12,000 with the liquid fuels funds, which we haven't had, so we were able to secure that, which is better than nothing, of course. Street lighting and infrastructure loans, which we completed this year, so we don't have any more of those in the liquid fuels fund. So that will free up a lot of that. If we do decide to pay with a project or something with the liquid fuels funds, we just have to go about the process of getting it pre-approved and following the liquid fuels guidelines for that, paving, anything like that, which Kevin is very familiar with, so that's something to think about. And lastly, for debt service, here's our 2 loan payments for the 2015 bond and the 2020 bond. The 2015 bond will be wrapping up in 2030 and the 2020 bond and not until 2050. It is important to keep in mind that these payments are going to significantly increase in the next few years, so we are going to have to start either budgeting to change the levy eventually to accommodate that, or think about maybe starting to put money aside for those payments that we don't have to alter that. But that, you know, it's just something to think about and consider. I wouldn't be doing my part if I didn't say that. So that is all I have for those funds, if you have any questions. And I can go back to any slide or further explain. In your packet, you also have the Excel sheets that I know you're all used to. I know they're small, so I can print them larger for you if you want. And, you know, they'll be changing frequently, but yeah, I'll print them for anybody who wants a bigger copy, because I know that they're a little bit harder to see. I just thought they would fit better in the folder. I didn't know where we were going to be having it tonight.
My eyes are a little older than
Yeah.
last year, so I would prefer that.
No, I understand. I can't are right off the computer, so.
So for the commissioners, we'll backtrack and then, let the department head for fire go first, and then a round of open, questions. Mike, do you have anything?
You also, along with your packets, there should be another packet, that's kind of a booklet for, the items to be addressed in a separate packet. So, this is still in draft format, but this is kind of a guide for the next few years, from everything from staffing to, the immediate needs in '26 through the apparatus needs throughout the future. There's also a history of the fire fund, which I try and provide that every year to the commissioners, with the actual expenses. And then there's percentages of the change over the years. And then there's also a portion where the fire fund expenses is compared to the consumer price index, just to see how we have done our expenses along with, compared to inflation. Then you get to the operational needs for 2026. Again, these are preliminary numbers, that's why it still says draft on it. When we get to the part-time firefighters, that is a line item that I would like to increase. We have opened up shifts out at Rutherford, but we'll go into some of those percentages of why I believe we need to increase that. We can jump right into that. So just to give you an overview of where we're at now with coverages, and that's staffing in stations. Right now, Station 91 maintains 92.5% coverage of at least 3 people. 78.4% of the time, they have at least 4. And that is attributed to the combination of the volunteers and the career staffing that is typically at that station. I know there's always a lot of questions about where career staffing is going to go, why we don't move them around. So these next numbers kind of paint that picture. There's 5 or more staffing there 57% of the time, 6 35% of the time, 7 19% of the time, and 8 9% of the time. So what we try and do is once we reach that 8 threshold in a station, that's when we can really start moving people around, and where it makes sense, so we're not just sending driver only or 2 people on a truck. There's lots of variables that go into that. Sometimes there's only 1 driver available, but we really try and are making an effort to get staffing at 2 stations. And the next stat shows why. Rutherford is a primarily at-home response station, and they're at greater than 3, 7.3% of the time, 4, 3.6% of the time, which obviously shows the gaps of not having staffing in that station. At-home response has worked for years. We still have a handful of at-home responders, which help out immensely, but it just slows down the response time for what the needs are. Our coverage is strongest during the weekdays, and that is attributed to typically we're having part-timers fill in the gaps during the day. And then weekends and overnights are starting to become a problem everywhere across the township. Another reason that there is a high percentage of coverage of Station 91 is we do have live-ins there. That really helps out a lot, but we just got notified one of our live-ins is leaving. They're going back to active duty military. So, no control over that, but that's going to be a huge hit for us. That live-in has been with us for a number of years. They're a driver, a senior person in that station, and that's really hard to fill. Good news is we had a junior firefighter that went from junior firefighter to almost firefighter 1, who has moved into the station. But a lot of our live-ins have been there for a number of years, and you know, they're one light change away from moving out. So we cannot keep up and keep filling the spots. You'll see some more, just some visuals of the coverages that I read, some graphs. And then you'll see a phased career staffing plan. Again, this is just a draft. This is not anything set in stone. But when I talk about the moving of staff around, what would really help with that is if we would put full-time supervision in the fire station so they could constantly look at that schedule and move people around to how it best serves the township. That would also help in the future for when we do add more career staffing, because you're going to have to do it. It's just a matter, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. I understand funding is, you know, obviously always an issue. You know, neighboring municipality is just, they added 8 full-time. I imagine that number is going to probably expand in 2026. And many of the volunteers actually spoke on behalf of that because they really just need help. And I'll go through and then we can go back and ask questions. But if you go to the apparatus section, apparatus ordering must begin 3.5 to 4.5 years in advance to meet projected replacement times. You know, the goal has always been to try and get a rotation of, you know, a truck 15 years of frontline service, especially with how busy we are, to keep those maintenance costs down. So you'll see in there the projected years of when we should replace apparatus, and then on the next page it will tell you when you have to order that. So the challenging part about this is it's very complex, because no matter what decision you make, you could be making a decision that ties up another board with a, you know, $1.5, $2.5 million project that they didn't really have a say in. But there's really no way around it with the lead times. So you'll see my recommendation on when apparatus should be ordered. The problem is you don't pay for the apparatus until it is complete. So as you see in the one chart, if we would order a rescue that needs replaced the third quarter of this year, we would not see it until 2029, and that is when the payment will be due. We have no idea who could, you know, would potentially be on the board then. The same thing with the engine rescue at Rutherford. I recommend that be replaced or ordered at the same time, but that you would not see that fire truck until 2030, because that is the lead times on engine rescues. And you can go through the chart, and you know, when you get out to the next round of replacements, those prices are really just throwing a dart at the dartboard, but I just wanted to give you some visuals on that, on what that looks like. And then there's just talking about the facilities and the feasibility study at Rutherford, the new public safety building. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and read everything. I know everyone. Hopefully, I made the print big enough for everybody. If there's any questions, if you have questions as you digest this document, again, this is a draft version of some long-term budgeting for the fire fund.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions. First, I would like to just mention the fact that in prior meetings, I've asked questions about the fire budget and was told that, you know, it's in some operations fund or things like that. I'm just gonna let everybody know early that I am not voting for a budget that isn't itemized, that I can't see line for line what we're purchasing next year. And I will use the drone, for example. Nothing against the drone, but it was not in the budget. And then when I asked about it, a document was held up and said, but it was in here. Well, Ms. Yarzinski just said that this is a wish list. And so a wish list doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. And so I'm asking for transparency nice and early so that next year, if something is purchased and I question it, we don't just throw a dart against the board and figure out which slush fund it's coming out of. And I had a problem with that, and I would make myself very clear then, Commissioner Steele, and, you know, I let it go, but I kept that in the back of my head that this year should be different since it wasn't clear the first time. And it's not, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying that, to me, it's something that I think we can improve upon moving forward in our operations. And I think that we all have the same goal in mind there. So that's just one thing. I do want to ask, and maybe, you know, Ms. Yarzinski or Commissioner Steele can answer this question for me. What is the cost of living adjustment that is factored in for our union employees for the upcoming year?
It's based on what they negotiate on their contract.
Yeah, so what is the negotiated adjustment? I know in past years it was like
I forget
three.
PD, I think PD's 4.5 this year.
It's, I think
Is it
it's
4?
4 this year and then 4.5 next year.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask that our,
Highway is 2.5?
Two now.
2.5.
I
okay,
do have it in the wage spreadsheet that I use to factor these,
Okay.
so I will get it to you.
so I'm going to ask that we keep that in mind when our administrative staff is looking toward adjustments. Because, you know, last year there was a 32% increase, and there was a 10% increase mid-budget year for another staff person, and actually there were a few $10,000 increases. And now I'm seeing the wish list for at least one, and I haven't had time to digest all of the budget requests yet, is a 6.2% increase. Well, I don't think that's very fair, considering in 2025 now we're going out and, you know, there's a need for an assistant at $52,000. And it's gonna be less work, but a 6.2% increase, not picking, but it's the facts, it's the picture that we're painting. And it's not fair to the rest of the staff, who, some may not have gotten increases, and, you know, I feel that we need to be fair to everyone, and we're not playing favorites. And I've kept that in the back of my mind, because it was, I've managed people before, I've been in this position before, you know, obviously, and I think it's bad for morale if we're giving random increases to people. People aren't happy. I come in a building and I wanna see everybody feeling appreciated, and I haven't gotten that sense over the last year, and I see, you know, Commissioner Connolly, you know, you may or may not agree with me on that, but, you know, it's on their faces, you know? I just wanna make sure we have a positive, healthy working environment for our employees. And then, so I have, my other question is, I'm looking at the percentages here. This 78% from the 91 station, and I'm very pleased, honestly, that we have coverage there, but the Rutherford station had a 7%, and I know we, you know, I'm not saying we have to always count on mutual aid, but we have mutual aid. So my question is, why is there such a heavy discrepancy on one side of the township versus the other? I thought the entire point of purchasing the station and going forward was to place part-time firefighters there so that we can balance things out a bit. Why are we not doing that? And can you give me a list, actually, of each station and the staff per station? That would be very helpful for me, looking at these percentages, knowing, you know, who's where. And, you know, and I know you mentioned that there's like live-ins at one station. It would help me to know how many live-ins at that one station, if we're treating all the stations fairly.
Right. Well, the percentages are down at Rutherford because you heard we try and move people when we have 8, so we have 4 on each piece of apparatus. So that's why those percentages are down.
What do you mean by you're moving people? I mean, if they don't, they have
Like,
apparatus
I'm not,
that
like, we're not gonna
run
send
for
one
station.
career person out there and then take our staffing down to 3 or 2 or to 1 at another station, and then put a driver only at one station.
Okay. Well, I know in the past, I've heard that there were, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, maybe 1 or 2 people in-house, and then, you know, the chiefs or, you know, lieutenants or whoever kind of met people at the scene. And people have left the station with 1 or 2 individuals on board,
Right.
knowing that there were going to be people meeting them there, so why, I mean, I'm not really getting that logic.
Why would you take a staffed fire truck and then
No, you
2
said,
unstaffed
you said 3
or
or
understaffed?
4 you said you have 3 or 4 at all times at the 91 station.
No.
There's 78% of the time that it's,
4.
just explain to me the 78 versus.
So what he's trying to
So
say,
that means-
Commissioner, is 4 is base, and if that's your base minimum for your staffing, he's not gonna take, say it's 3 volunteers and then 1 career, he's not gonna take that 1 career and then send it to Rutherford, because then he gets rid of his base, and his percentage, that's gonna be higher. And I was gonna ask the same question that you're getting into, but I think I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. The increase that he's asking for additional career staff part-time, they will then be sent to Rutherford to offset that graph that you showed there, and then they'll come up to base, which would be 4, and then their staffing number should increase because you're mixing with the volunteer plus the career.
If enough people sign up to
Sign up to
work,
work.
that's the problem. So we have actually opened up shifts at both stations, and the reason for the increase is so that way, if, in theory, it's not gonna happen, say you have 6 people sign up for every day, then that would cover those costs. And it also allows, you know, the guys and girls are really good about letting us know, you know, hey, there's no volunteers around this weekend, can you page out for overtime? Or not overtime, but page out for an extra shift for part-timers. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's just, it's very hard. And when you talk about coverage, so what I'm saying when I say that is if you take all of the time from January 1 through, I think those percentages were done like August 20-something when I did them, that is the percent of time that there was that number of people in a fire station, in that particular fire station. So when you see 70, whatever it was, 78%, you know, that's not really the point where we would juggle people around, because that would be a fully staffed truck.
It would help to have more of a picture if you could give me that information then. When, who's at what station, you know, who's staffing, how often. I'd just like to have a better picture. And look, I've contended from day 1. I'm all for part-time firefighters. We started the ball rolling in 2023, so I have no issue. I just want to know, my number 1 goal, and I think it's all of our number 1 goal, is to ensure that we have quality public safety township-wide. And when I see a higher number on one side, and some people go back and forth with me and they'll say, well, we can make it to the other side of the township in 3 minutes. If you're speeding, maybe, I don't know. But I just want to make sure we have balanced quality coverage township-wide. We have a township of 27,000. When the numbers put out there and they try to compare us with other municipalities, we have twice, in some cases twice, the number of miles per road than other municipalities. We have 14 square miles of road that we cover, and over 27,000 residents. So I just want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, that we're putting people where they belong, that we're ensuring that one side of the township is, you know, treated the same as the other, and we have road systems that divide us, and we want to make sure that there is no divide. So that's
I
my
actually
concern.
recommend that
That's
the
my
first
concern.
full-time firefighters go to Rutherford.
That's the reason why I've always been in favor of multiple stations. We can have one fire service, one cohesive fire service is all I've ever wanted. But I think we should have, you know, the same thing you do with the stock market. You shouldn't place all your eggs in one basket. I don't think we should place all our eggs in one basket in our township when it comes to fire service.
Yeah.
And then my other final question, and then I'm gonna let open it up to everyone else. I feel like I've kind of, you know, taken over the conversation here, but my one final point is I had asked for a list of vehicles, mileage, all of that. You had emailed me back and said that the list you provided was complete. It's not.
What's
I
missing?
can, well, the EMA vehicle's
No, it's
missing.
on there.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I'm gonna read
Every
it out.
vehicle on the
I'm gonna
system.
read it out to everybody so
Please
they
do.
can see.
Please read it. For the whole-
Excuse me.
Well,
Is there a reason why
here's-
you're responding to me in that manner?
Here's what I'll say, like, we're in a budget meeting, I think that's for.
Well, it's part of the budget.
Let her read it.
It's not,
No,
but.
listen, it's part of the budget.
Let her read it.
And he's gonna sit there and disrespect me in a budget meeting. I don't deserve to be spoken in that manner. So I'm going to read it out, and I'm gonna tell you that you're wrong, and I would just like an updated list. And it's not okay. It's not okay to treat people that way. So, we have, one is assigned to Mr. Harlacker, Mr. Warren, Mr. Bradnick, Mr. Orth, Commissioner Steele, Chief Iverson, and Mr. Kai. Where's Craig Power's vehicle? Does he not have a vehicle anymore? Are there other vehicles around that?
No, that is the
Well,
EMA vehicle.
Okay, so there's
It's
only
shared.
one in, okay, well, you could have put on there that it was shared. I asked you for a complete list of who they were assigned to.
That is, like,
You
it's a
didn't
complete
list the
list.
assignment. You
Yes,
didn't
I
say it was
did.
shared.
He is using
Oh
it
my
right
God.
now.
You know
That's
what?
who it's assigned to.
Chief Iverson, this is not okay. I'm
not
asking
doing
you
anything.
questions. I said I would
I'm
like to know who
answering.
they're assigned to. That vehicle was initially assigned to Mr. Powers.
And right now
And
it's
so
assigned.
I'm looking at your list, and it's not correct because it didn't list his name. So you didn't tell me that,
Not assigned
you
it
said
right
it's
now.
shared.
He's not using it right now. Kai is.
Okay, well, that's all you had to tell me when I asked.
No, you kept saying there wasn't a complete list.
Well, come on, it appears not to be complete. When you send me a list and I knew that
It has
you
VIN
had-
numbers,
okay.
license plate numbers, years, makes,
All right.
models.
You know what,
Only
you
thing
know,
I'll say with this is,
Any-
it's so,
read
it's
your
so
mind,
dis-
if you could say too, like, I'm looking for Craig,
I
why isn't he showing
have
up?
asked,
So-
I've asked.
But
I have-
also
I've
we're talking
explained
about
that.
being respectful, everybody,
I
including
explained
you,
that to
needs to
Ms.
be respectful
Yarzinski.
as well.
She
I
is being
have been respectful. I did not need to be responded to, and you know, I thank you for coming to his
doing it
rescue
as
as
well.
usual.
You're doing
Because
it
you
as
know what,
well.
I'm a commissioner, I asked questions,
Yeah.
I didn't need to,
the response that I got, it was
He
not.
told you he provided you a complete list and he was
did.
correct.
I asked him
So-
questions, I didn't get a
Right, and he
response.
said that he provided it to you and you didn't like that answer.
Well, I'm gonna
You
read the
pulled it up, you
response
read
because it was very disrespectful.
It was
And-
not, it was not.
Did you read their email chain?
It was.
Are
No,
you,
I didn't, no.
maybe you shouldn't read other people's minds then.
Right.
you know, you wanna sit
Let's
there and play the
all,
hero.
let's all use decorum. Let's all do that. That's, we're adults, let's behave like adults. Yeah,
You're-
that's what I'm saying. Everybody behave like adults.
Excuse me, but I was behaving like an
He
adult.
answered your
And
question
I didn't
and you
think he
badgered
needed you to
him.
come to his
He
rescue.
answered
I'm
your
asking
question. No,
questions.
let's get back on track, because we're here for a budget meeting. You asked your question, he answered it, you badgered him,
Look at
said it
your
was
attitude.
incorrect. He was
Look-
not
look at your
incorrect.
attitude.
He gave you the information. Let's all
What
get back
about
on
your
track.
attitude?
Let's all get back on track.
What about your attitude?
Are you ready? Can we go? Do you have any other questions at this time?
No, I have no other questions at this time, but I find your behavior extremely
That's
disrespectful.
fine, I believe that, but again, I've said this before, people have eyes and they have ears.
That's
They can
right.
see yours as well.
They do, and they can
Yep.
also see the corruption a mile away.
Right.
Anybody else have any other questions right now? Commissioner Conley's gonna go.
Yeah, I just want to, it's more or less information about the budget, and then I will have some questions. In front of us, we have the expense actual, so that spans 10 years. And a question for Mr. Iverson is, it starts in 15, so that comes over from 14, so basically 14, up till now, how many pieces of apparatus have we purchased?
5.
And what was the last year we purchased one?
2018,
Okay, so we have 5,
17, or
2018.
18.
Okay, and then how many, we heard that we like to have multiple fire stations. How many fire stations have we been using? I only saw 2 on your chart since 2022.
Since 2022.
Yeah.
Are you the staffing?
No, the response time. You had the green and the blue, so the blue was a higher column for. With your, what Commissioner Zubek asked you about with your, right here. So that's just 2 stations.
That's not response time. Yeah.
No, response percentage.
Yeah.
Or the times they
No,
respond.
that's the coverage, and
Right.
there's 2 people that staff.
No, just numbers, there's 2 stations here. There's a blue
Yes.
and a green. So that's Rutherford and the fire station.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to point something out because I'm going to go down to the planning commission meeting. From, this starts in 2015 and it says 0 change. So I'm assuming that either you didn't have a number or that's the start, or maybe it was the same year before, but regardless. But if you look at 2016, expenses down 8.29%. Then they go up 4.39. So that's, at that point, you're down 4% total. Then it goes down 1.4, 1.28, 1.99, almost 2, and then negative 9.60. So if you take out the +4, over those years, the amount of money we spent on fire went down 18%. And we were able to purchase 5 pieces of apparatus. I realize we have some payments, but so I'm not as concerned
They were
about your.
leased, correct? Were they leased?
I'm
just
going to
asking
keep
if
talking
they were
because I only have
leased
so
or
much time. But you can ask what.
I was just asking if they were leased or purchased. Can you
I
tell
said
me?
payment over time, so that's a lease. But anyway,
Okay, but you said purchased, and
we
purchased is not the
purchased them
same
in
as
those
lease.
years. We obtained them. We're using them.
Okay.
Okay, and I didn't interrupt or say one word.
Yeah,
no matter what you
purchase is
said.
not the same as
I'm just
lease.
going to keep going.
Okay.
He said what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he
said-
should say it.
So overall spending
Okay.
with
He did.
with the lease
Okay.
for those apparatus still went down. So that actually, thank you, because that makes it better than what I was saying. So I appreciate that. So with a payment in there, with a payment for a lease, as Commissioner Zubek pointed out, overall fire spending was going down. And in 22, it went up 6.65%, and in 23, it went up 23%. This year, 3.2%, which is about the inflation cost of living. So we really got we got it under control now.
We should look at what's coming out of that.
We got it
fund
under
and pay
control
for it.
now.
Remember we talked about decorum,
But-
please stop interrupting.
Oh my.
I didn't need peanuts.
I just want to point out to everybody here, 2024 had paid part-timers. First year we had paid part-timers. And people say, what's it going to cost for paid part-timers? Let's put this online. Because it cost $7,059 over the year before. That's all it costs. Remember the gloom and doom of millions of dollars? So we're really handling the budget well. We had 1 year where the budget went up $326,000 in 23. Didn't purchase apparatus, didn't pay a firefighter, and the budget went up $326,000. And the year before that, it went up $90,000. And I'm going to say this and go downstairs. The person that questions everything we do, who drives what, how quickly we respond, wants more stations, is the person who was in my spot of chairing fire. And from this point on, I will take it personally. An attack on fire is an attack on me because I'm here now. So it went up 3% this year. I will apologize to the public that it went up 3%, but I'm going to ask you, come to the next meeting, explain why it went up 30%, why it went up hundreds of thousands of dollars,
I will.
and why you still complain about these excellent volunteers and paid firefighters that we have that risk their lives.
We can
we're
talk
complaining
about how
everything.
you underfunded the ambulance fund and how you underfunded everything
Ambulance
else.
is 99,000. We've actually been able to bring that down. You're talking about how we made the payments. And everything is negative. And guys that are involved here, you're doing great. Ladies that are involved here, you're doing great.
I agree.
We are really doing a good job in public safety across the board.
They're
For a
doing
person that increases spending 30% and has no measurable results, it's insulting to the public. From this point on, attack gets a return fire. I'm going downstairs. Ambulance is great. Good job on the budget, Mike. We'll keep working on it.
It's quite aggressive of you.
I have another meeting, and you took up a half an hour complaining.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, I'm proud of everybody in here that does a good job.
Look, no one ever
Obviously, you
said.
I'm not proud of
Exactly.
complainers, if that's what you want to know.
Obviously,
If you want to be a
you can't take
complainer,
You
I'm
know
not
what?
proud of
Just settle down, please.
you. I'm leaving. You asked me a question. I'm answering.
I just said please settle
I'm
down. because
proud
this
of
is
what our
ridiculous.
guys do in public
Let's talk
safety.
about
You
your
said
salary.
they aren't.
Police, fire, EMS.
Let's
No
talk-
one said
let's
they
talk
weren't.
about
Who
your
drove the
salary.
what? Where did they leave from? Come on, put out the fires, arrest the people.
provide public safety.
Let's
for the
talk about your
township.
overall
Okay.
budget. Let's talk about your mismanagement. The DA should be involved in that.
Have a good evening, sir. Yep, thanks.
Commissioner
may I
Tucky, do you have
please-
anything?
Yes, I do. But no one's against volunteers. No one's been. People are concerned. Commissioner Zubek's bringing up points because this is a budget, and we're trying to figure out some things possibly that might be able to help us for this incoming year, right? And I didn't see anything out of line with what Commissioner Zubek was saying. So just, I think we all have to a point the same concerns and the same trying to get things settled to where we're in a better spot moving forward. No one's attacking anyone. I have total appreciation, which I've stated many times, with our volunteer firefighters. I don't have an issue with any of them. I appreciate all of them. And we need to allow all of them to participate and help. Now, my concern is with the apparatus. What's the lifespan? I know that with the insurance, it used to be a certain period of time, and that's got extended out. So I'd like to, if you could please, I saw the graph here, but can you give me the actual time frame of what is actually allowed for those pieces of apparatus then?
They actually got rid of that time frame as long as if it's a engine, as long as it passes its pump testing and all its tests. There's no, it used to be after 20 years, it would not count towards your ISO. That is no longer in effect.
So not at all, so we don't have to worry about that part. And no, I don't want to run our equipment down to where it's major issues down the road. But
You do somewhat for your front line pieces. I mean, when you're looking at 1,300 responses a year, and you got one engine that's, one of the engines that's doing 1,300 responses a year, and a rescue that's doing 1,300, that wear and tear is going to be greater in a short amount of time than over 20 years. So you're right in essentially what you're saying, and I know where you're trying to get at, right? It's not necessarily going to be 20 years, and then you could also look at, like something that we do with the police department, also counts towards the fire apparatus, which are those engine hours. Those engine hours are worse than the miles themselves. But the standard used to be, 20 years and you get a replacement.
so I'm thinking about that as being
Yeah.
up on the board. Okay, the other thing is, when you're looking through this stuff here, I lost my train of thought for a second because,
What are you talking about, the apparatus and replacement?
yeah.
Sorry, it's easy to lose your train of thought.
I'm sorry. But no one has anything against the volunteers. We haven't, just concerns about moving forward with what we're doing. And I don't really see anything that's been going on that's not proper from asking questions. So I disagree with that part.
You know, I never mentioned volunteers or firefighters. I
Right.
mentioned just budgetary questions. But, you know, I'm just getting back on track. Commissioner Steele, did you not state just a few meetings ago that the lease agreements ended up being more cost prohibitive than they have been beneficial? So we were moving more toward looking to purchase in the future. Did I not hear you say that?
So here's what the board has to look at.
Because, no, I mean,
I'm about-
I thought you talked about that.
Yeah, I did, and that was going to be part of my end conversation today. The board has to look at the totality of the budget. You know, at your opening statement, you know, you gave certain things like, okay, police are going to get 4%, and highway's going to get 2.5%, right? So when you look at from a revenue standpoint, you know, if we didn't increase revenue to match that 6.5%, we're on the back end of making that expense because your revenue hasn't increased, and that's where it becomes a problem. Now, there are certain times where it is in the best interest of the government to do a lease, but you have to leverage your investments against that lease. And what I mean by that is, if we're earning 2 years ago, we were about 7.5% on Pliget. You know, if you're at 7.5% on Pliget, your investment's there, you're getting 2.5% on a lease, it makes sense to lease, right? If you have the cash flow, it makes sense to lease. The problem with Swatara Township's general fund, and that was primarily where I had untied the majority of the leases, the problem with the general fund is that it's a deficient fund. It's in a depressed state. So it's either we got to figure out a way to gain more revenue, and the only way you gain more revenue, let's be honest, is you reduce your employee headcount, or the only other alternative is you raise taxes. You got to find creative ways and creative solutions, and we have done that, for the last 2 years with our cost sharing agreement. And that's why I'm so adamant about the cost sharing agreement, because you have to keep that in place and you have to continue forward with that, because we spread duties over other departments and other people so we can free up our cash flow. So then as we freed up the leases, we freed up our cash flow. As we got into the cost sharing agreement, we weren't paying for one staff member, just ourselves, under the general fund. Now, what you're going to find yourself a situation in the future, the next board has some tough decisions to make, and it's going to be in 2028, 2029. And those decisions are going to be, you're already increasing your headcount when it relates to police and highway. So you have to make a decision on where are you going to reduce costs, or where are you going to increase revenue? Well, if you do the math, you can't increase enough revenue. If we get rid of every single green space in Swatara Township, it still will not be enough revenue to generate and bring us to where we need. So, our budget has essentially it's deficient, and we got to fix it, right? And we can all go back and forth on what that solution is, and we either got to cut costs, you got to watch every single penny that comes in, you got to cut out some expenses, because you can't continue on the same course. And this isn't, and I always said this, Commissioner Zubeck, this isn't a 2-year problem, 3, 5, 7, 20, this is a 20, 30, 40-year problem. I think us, collectively, because we know what's going on, besides myself, I think, the senior members, yourself, Mr. Tuckey, Commissioner Ellis, and Commissioner Conley have been on the board to be able to see what's going on. We can make the corrective measures that when the next board come in, they won't be faced with what we're faced with. So I would have wished that I could have came on this board and really just been able to come to meetings, engage with the public, and have fun events. But unfortunately, the finances have been the highest priority. Now, getting to fire and the leases in fire, the issue with the leases in fire, we still have 2 lease vehicles. It's the Engine 5, and I don't think Engine 91's paid off yet, right?
No, it's the tower.
It's the tower. Okay, it's the tower. So we're still on the lease there, but essentially I did it to free up cash
So
flow.
I want to go back to that, because I was on the board questioning a lot of that was taking place, and I was stuck with those leases. So I agree with you. And the individual that just got up, the commissioner that just got up and threw a temper tantrum and said he was going to go on the attack because I'm questioning budgetary decisions of the past, well, that's so you don't make the same mistakes of the past. And they weren't purchases. They were leased vehicles that compounds as far as our interest rate. And so when you saddle a board with a lot of interest and a lot of things, and you have the nerve to sit there and question why costs went up, that's the reason. And you have 2 individuals here that thought lease agreements were wonderful. Well, they might have been wonderful when they were at the low interest rate that you took them at. But when you add all of it together, it adds up. And then you go out and you borrow $20 million. It adds up. And then, so I'm looking at the debt service, and we're going to be talking about that tonight, debt service fund. Well, look at the debt service. We got one that's completed in 2030 and one 2050. It adds up. And so I don't want to hear anybody, especially that person that left, sitting in this room talking about how great he is and what a great job he did and how what great management we've had. We have not had good management. We've had nothing but poor decision making that culminated over the last few years. And you want to talk about 10 years? Let me talk about 10 years. That increase, that massive tax increase that board like 12 years ago did, that was supposed to get us 12 years. Just 2 years short of that 12 years, we increased spending under him, lost revenue, and went out and borrowed $20 million and cut $180,000 out of our general fund. That's not good, sound financial management. And the person from PFM that came in and do that report, that audit, reiterated that is poor financial management. And so I'm going to sit here in budget meetings and I'm going to be honest And I'm sorry if honesty makes people go off the rails. But I'm entitled as a commissioner on this board to ask the tough questions, and I'm not gonna stop asking the tough questions. Whether people want me to change direction or not. You know, I would like to be able to see what I'm looking at some point. I would like an itemized list of every single thing that I'm voting on. And for the record, I am 100% in support of the fire service. I always have. I put my heart and soul into it. From the time I was 18 years old, and I signed up myself to volunteer. I love the firefighters in this township. I love the fire service. I have long-standing relationships with many people sitting back here. It's not about that. It's about the money. That's what we're responsible for. I'm not responsible for whether or not I hurt somebody's feelings because I asked a question and they made a bad decision. 5 years, 10 years, however many years ago. I'm not in the business of considering everybody's feelings when I ask a legitimate, sound financial question. And that's all I have to say. I mean, I look forward to reviewing everything. And Chief Iverson, I look forward to following up with you on some of my questions so that I can get to a point where the budget that you presented is something we can all work for.
Just to add a little bit more to that, it is a combination effect, and these are certain things that, you know, I think even managers didn't pay attention to, and I don't think it was in the previews of the board. But another issue you're going to run into within the next 2 to 3 years is why I said like 29. If you just look at the revenue from the franchise fee, that is going down. That is to offset costs in the general fund. Well, when you think about it, why is it going down? Because people are getting rid of cable. They're doing more streaming. So we have to make up for that lost revenue, because that is paying highway, that's paying police, that's paying for our general fund operations. Where you've seen, you know, our value right now for all our parcels is about it was 1.57 billion. I think you did 1.5. It was a little bit like 1.55 billion. Right, so that's another loss that we're about to get hit with. Yeah, just last year it was
Small.
Yeah, so last year it was actually 1.57 billion. Now we're going to be this roughly 1.551 billion. Like that's a significant loss. I mean, the only other things that the board can do, and I get, you know, the tax decrease, but sometimes you got to look at a tax decrease as a policy, and the policy is to spur growth. And when you see a tax cut like that, businesses tend to grow because they want to come where the taxes are lower, 3.64. So they want to come where the business taxes are lower. So you spur growth, housing starts, commercial starts, but then we also got to take in consideration. I mean, we got a trifecta. We also got the state that took over property, that wiped out residential, that wiped out commercial. Absolutely, you know. It's a combination effect, because it not only affects the township, it affects the township, sewer, and stormwater. So, I mean, I believe the budget does deserve a lot of discussion, and I think we need to also add these pieces to it as we get further down the road, because we got to do something to correct it. I think we all agree that our general fund, no matter who did it, how it happened, is in a deficient state. And I think that is the problem, right? So as a board collectively, we have to say, what is our solution? And I can tell you right now, we can have 2,000 housing starts and on the tax rolls by next month, and it's not going to fix the deficient state of the general fund. It's just not gonna. And the longer that we continue to do nothing, it's going to get worse. And when you look at the different funds, and you know, let's use debt services for instance. At the time that you did borrow the money, and I wasn't on the board, it wasn't a decision that I had to make. I couldn't see the numbers, I don't know. So the money came in at a lower interest rate. So even to make the payment on that, which you had invested, that's where I go back to that leverage, it made sense. What was the board's, I guess, long-term goals with that money? You know, were we going to leverage our interest against that money to make the payment? I don't know that. I don't know what the board was thinking. I can say when I looked at it. Yeah, I'm giving you an opportunity after I get done. I can say when I looked at the borrowing, and then when I looked at versus what was invested, the investments covered the expense. And you know, we will always have a debt service fund, which is based upon the real estate tax, to cover that. I mean, did you need a new police department? Absolutely. You know, would I have done some different things sitting on the board now? Absolutely. I probably would have still voted to borrow money, but I would have probably borrowed more
Listen, I would
to
have
do more
not
projects. But I mean,
$180,000 out of our general fund to say you cut taxes for political purposes, and then going out and borrowing $20 million in the same year does not make any sense.
All right.
It never did make any sense.
I haven't got to speak.
But I
yet,
did,
So when you're done,
okay,
I'm gonna go.
that's fine, you know what, you say whatever you have to, I do have a follow-up, and I will, be gladly.
Okay, so with regard to the way that that was going to be paid back, the Overland Station, the payments for that were up. There were a handful of other payments that were going to be done, which they were just going to be what covered the cost of the amount that was owed back. With regard to the borrowing, we got $20 million at like a 2% interest rate. We're only responsible for paying back a little over 17,000 because some other municipality borrowed that money
Million,
and
you
then
mean million.
defaulted on it.
Million, you said thousand.
I'm sorry, I'm extremely tired. So but yeah, we got 17 mil, we are only responsible for paying 17 million back out of getting $20,000.
You can say whatever you want there, but it's still $20 million that we're
It's
paying
not, we're only
interest.
responsible for paying back 17, a little over 17.
$490 some $1,000 a year, in interest. You know, you can say that, you know, whatever. You can say whatever you want. That's still a significant amount of money when you're cutting $180,000.
Another thing with regard to fixing these problems is we have to be strategic about development. We can't continue to say, no, we don't want anything, and then expect people to come into the township and have businesses and things like that and want to continue to have the township grow.
2023, those years were some of our, we had more development in those 2 years than any other.
Oh,
We had
and you reminded me. Thank you for that.
83 properties that were taken, right, we had
COVID.
180,000, oh my gosh, our engineering fees went from 300,000 to
Right, because we were
700,000.
getting projects done, we're getting projects done
They're
again.
in a COVID year,
Those
2020,
are things that
COVID year,
people can
2020.
tangibly
I would love to have a list of those
feel and
projects.
see.
2020, I would love to have a list of the projects we got done in 2020, because to go
So
from
the capital improvement
$300,000
plan. Here,
to
I'll send you.
$700,000 in engineering fees,
do we have anything? You have anything else
Yes,
for
I have
fire?
something else.
can't defend it.
Brittany, would you be able to get or provide a copy of like the last 10 years when the leases were done, and then when they were paid off? Like when did we start doing all these leases?
Okay, I will be upfront that some of the
2018.
original documentation has
Sure.
been unable to be located.
2018.
Some of it, yeah, we haven't, not all of them are.
Not all.
Yeah,
I think we
there's-
did. I think we did.
some-
some.
There's a significant
Yeah, there's
amount
some
in
before.
22 as well.
Yeah.
There's,
So
I think there
that's
might
it.
even be some before
Well, you
2018.
mean the 22 budget that you guys put in place that wasn't changed?
Why didn't you change it if it was a problem?
Well, because you said it was sustainable. Are you lying? Were you
That makes
lying
no
that it
sense.
was
That's-
sustainable? Let's
You
go
were
back and
president,
look
you were
through the
finance
video, the
chair. You
minutes.
said you wanted to see also, here you go, this, you wanna hear, I'll tell you the projects that were completed. Repaving in Rutherford neighborhood, Paxton Street corridor improvements, Paxton Street let's see. Installation of adapted signalization, 28th Street, and Paxton Street, 2021. The repaving in Rutherford was 2020. 2023, we had design and improvements to pay for Paxton Street and Sycamore. That's still
That was already budgeted, go ahead.
right. Dewey Street, that was done in 23. Sidewalk construction along Paxton Street, that was completed in 23. All of those started prior to 2023, when you're talking about in COVID times. We
No,
started all of those
2020, I'm
projects.
talking about 2020. You're 2 years off.
Listen to what I said. I said they started in 2020, they were completed in 23. They began the planning
No,
and things
not
like that.
true, not
It is.
true.
It's absolutely true. And I can, it's online, people can look at it, that was just a handful of things. So,
Commissioner Ellis, to go from 300,000 in
The capital
1 year
improvements
to
project is what
700,000
the money
in
was brought
1
before,
year.
the plan,
You
that's
can't
online.
justify it. You cannot justify it.
Justify what?
Your poor mismanagement.
What was my poor mismanagement?
That you were chair when it went from 300,000 to 700,000. Maybe you should have been watching our
You're
finances.
talking about public works?
I'm talking about
I'm
engineering.
very proud of the things that got completed.
I'm
I'm very
talking about
proud of the things
engineering
that I was
fees.
able to accomplish while I was on this board. So,
Okay.
yeah, very, very proud of that.
Okay.
Yep.
While Chief Iverson's here, we have anything else for fire?
No.
No.
You have anything else? Appreciate you. Debt services? Or liquid, let's do liquid fuels next, and then we'll just go to, or you did liquid fuels.
I opened it up to all questions. I think we.
Yeah, let's just do it, let's go back to liquid fuels though, because I mean, we got off track here, just so
I mean-
everybody can look at the liquid fuels. I'll just state this one thing, there are no more, the bonds will be paid off, excuse me, the loans for liquid fuels will be paid off, so,
Oh, that's my big highlight at the bottom.
it would be, who this board that, and it was based upon the plan of last year, let's get these loans paid off and then go after, more paving this year, and I think, talking to, Director Trafka, I think that's his intent this year to increase his paving. And we're at a position, I think it was 153 from not paying that, $153,000 from not having to pay for that loan anymore, an infrastructure loan. So
63rd Street Bridge.
we're in the 63rd Street Bridge. So now we gotta we can move over 153,000 in liquid fuels for approved paving, and then remember we still also always have our money budgeted in the general fund for paving. So that'll put us well over. I'm sure he can speak to this, but I'm sure you want to be well over $200,000
For sure.
with paving next year, and that doesn't include our agreement that we have with public utilities where we can use some of that money towards them to cut down that cost. But we have some alleyways, we have some streets that need to be paved, and I think it would be smart for this board when we come back, once Director Traffic can tell us, you know, what it looks like, what he wants to pave, and what his exact number is. So there's no number in there for paving right now. We will come back based upon his conversation, what he wants to do as far as paving and liquid fuels.
That's understandable.
And that's another fund where, you know, it's 5% every year. Think about the next 10 years, that's 50%. You know, that's going to be in half. And then something that we got to think about, one of our largest expenses out of there is anti-skid, and then there's the street lighting. I mean, the street lighting is staggering. I mean, future boards down the future, I mean, as you get to 50%, you're cutting that in half, and you got to now decide whether you're going to pay for anti-skid, salt, or street lights. You know, that's something we got to think about, and it's probably best to start thinking about that now, and somewhere get that in a budget plan for the future. That way, future boards know that they don't have to come in and learn that, and they know that's on their radar when they come in. Because I mean, could you imagine you sitting on the board and you're faced with a $320,000 new expense? That's something we got to look at. But if no one has anything for liquid fuels, we'll just slide right over to debt services.
I'd like to, have we gone to ambulance fund? Because I do want to make some comments on ambulance fund,
Well, yeah, we can do that one.
if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, just to put it in perspective, I would like to have the number in 2022 for the ambulance fund, because in 2022, the ambulance fund was underfunded. And that's one of those things where I was saying that, you know, we had to make up the difference on a lot of things that were underfunded, and the ambulance fund was one of them. And when you talk about different funds, like the fire fund going up, you gotta look at the other funds. It's a little disingenuous for a commissioner here to say, oh, spending went up in this fund, that's one fund. We're looking at the overall budget, which is what most people are looking at. You wanna concentrate on the respective departments, and everybody should stay within their budget. But there are unforeseen circumstances in which people mismanage things, and you have to make sure that there's enough money in these funds. Ambulance fund was one of them. I'd like that number.
Yeah.
And then also, just to point out, also in the fire budget, and I know I did not need, but this kind of ties in a little bit. There was $150,000 that was taken out of the fire fund to pay for
hydrant services in prior years. Now, that was, again, you already took $180,000 out of our general fund in that year, and then another $150,000 in our general fund. You multiply that by 4, and that was not a great decision. So that had to be made up. And so when you talk about, and we put it back where it belonged, it was coming out of the fire fund. I think that the fund should be paying for the things that it's responsible for. And that is one of them. And I would like to see that $150,000, again, when you show me the itemized list, $150,000 for hydrant services should be coming out of the fire fund so that people know the real numbers and not someone trying to paint this picture. You know, we want to show the story, the narrative, the real narrative, not the fake narrative. So just to go back there, like the little things I would like to see, it shouldn't be a big deal if you're spending money the way you're supposed to be spending. But hydrant services should not be paid out of our general fund, it should be paid out of the fire fund, and our fire fund should be managed in a proper manner so that we don't overspend.
Just so we're clear, I mean, you know, some of the things, adding additional GLs could get cumbersome. And, you know, we normally go by GASB, and it's the General Accounting Standard Board practices for accounting. Like, and I get what you're saying. I think you'll get a list of, and let me make sure I'm clear what you're saying. If a department head has a capital expense for $200,000, you want to know what they're anticipating to spend that $200,000 on.
No,
Because for us to create more GLs, let's just say out of $200,000, it's another GL for 50, another GL for 25, another GL for 25. That becomes cumbersome and almost outside of what the standard would be. Like if it's a capital purchase, it's put under capital purchase.
No, it was a change that was made. Here you're paying for hydrant services out of the fire.
No, I'm going back to your original. Not that. I'm going back to your original question that you had given for you wanted general additional line items.
Yeah, I want every single. I want to know what we're paying for. And when you have these general, like, you know, here's a slush fund for this, and we took it out, yeah, we don't need to have that.
And I think
we
that
should know where we're spending our money.
Oh, we have
I
that.
guess
So
when I
okay,
give you
all right.
the bigger copy,
Right.
you'll be
You'll see
very pleasantly surprised. They broke it out by each station, and then
Right.
like that station's electric, that station's
Right.
data.
Water,
I think that
data.
you'll really
So like the
it.
170, I get
When
what you're
you
saying.
see
You
the
don't
bigger
want to just see the
version.
170. You want to see what that 170 spent
Yeah.
on.
No, because
Yeah,
when
you
I
have
ask
that in the bigger
where
budgets.
money came from Adrone, and you say, it's in this document, you had this all along, I don't want to see a wish list. I want to see the itemized list that we're going to be voting on. I don't want to see a wish list.
I think that whenever it's in your packet now, but when I print you the bigger sheet, even I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think it will accommodate
Yeah,
you.
but
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
I think she's still going to be. So it's like imagine if you had a drone line item.
I do have a drone line.
Right,
come
but
in there.
what I'm saying is
They
she
put
wants
up
to see.
capital outlay last year, which one?
Yeah.
She wants to
Yeah.
see drone batteries. You know,
We weren't told that we were buying
so
a drone.
you would be
We were
adding
never told that.
sub accounts to the
If you,
GL.
which I don't know
Well,
if I'm
there
right.
is
We did talk about it in one of the budget meetings.
There's a big difference between talking about it when
Right.
she starts out the conversation saying this is a wish list
Yeah.
and us actually doing it.
But you
Commissioner
said it wasn't talked about, but it
No.
was.
No,
That's
it
what
wasn't.
I'm saying.
We
It
did
was
not-
talked about
we-
in a budget
Um,
meeting
what I-
last
Debt
year.
services.
You know what? It's a little deceiving for you to say that we knew that there was going to be a drone purchased. Okay, when just because you mentioned something briefly in a meeting
You said it
does
wasn't
not
talked about.
mean
It was. That's
I
not
don't
accurate. It
recall
was
talking
talked
about it, but if it was a line and that was it. And I think it's deceiving. So you can sit there and bring the technicalities all you want,
It
but
was
it was
talked about.
it was deceiving.
It was said in public. It was a public meeting.
Your excuses are deceiving.
Anything for debt services before we wrap up?
I just have 2 questions.
Yeah, if you can, just make sure you just speak up for the mic.
I was kind of curious, where are we at with the audit that was done this year?
They're still working on it, so there's a delay because because of the cost share agreement, our audit is tied to the stormwater audit and the sewer audit. The sewer audit is not complete yet, so therefore our audit is delayed. We filed an extension and it was accepted because we currently had change in staff. So, we're approved and we're on standby till then.
Is there any kind of timeline?
Hopefully within a month, they said, but I'll have a better estimate, in about a week or two. They're coming back, I think, this Friday, so they'll hopefully have an estimate for me and I'll give it to you guys.
And it's essentially journal entries.
Right.
You gotta take us from a cash basis, all three entities, to a accrual basis. Until you do that, you can't.
Right. But the stormwater portion and the township portion are completed, they're just not submitted yet.
Okay, and then I'm also curious, I'd like to know where we're at for the township for the credit rating, currently where we're at.
We've never went out for another credit rating, so our credit rating's the same.
Right.
I'd like to have us
The only,
see what it is currently.
We won't go out for a credit rating.
Would it make it lower?
No, we wouldn't, we will not go out for a credit rating because you're not getting a bond.
Yeah.
If we would go out for a bond, then we would get a credit rating.
So
But
it's not like you can.
Our credit, why would we?
yeah, it's.
Why would we?
I feel
Unless you wanna do some borrowing.
No, I'm
No.
not saying
I
anything about
think
it, I
Commissioner
just,
Tucky's just asking where we currently are with the status since we borrowed.
Our credit rating's still the same since you borrowed. You didn't go out and do anything else differently.
I've always been told that unless you're looking, you should keep what you have, because we have like one of the highest standings, and we don't wanna get a potential
But
less one,
and I-
and then that, like, it hurts like our credit score overall, so they've always said to not do that. PFM and other banking institutions have advised against it. It is something that we could do, it's just, I would say that we should get the advisors in here, because there's really high pros and cons.
I was just curious.
If we get it worse one
I understand like stuff like that's a little different, of course.
Yeah.
Municipality compared to your
Right,
normal
right.
personal accounts, but
Right,
I was just curious, where we actually stood with all
yeah.
that.
But if we don't get a new one, they say that our last one that we've ever had still stands, so. It's a, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, 7:23, budget meeting is officially closed. See you in the next one, or tomorrow, today's what, Tuesday, right?
No, tomorrow's not the budget meeting, tomorrow's
I know,
the board
tomorrow's just
meeting.
the board meeting, I know, see you tomorrow.